Welcome to Fully Booked, the bookish podcast where I'll chat about all things book and reading related. Whether you're new or a pro reader, there's something for everyone to learn. I'm here to help you on your reading journey and find that next great read that will keep you fully booked. Hello readers, and welcome to episode 2 of Fully Booked. I'm your host, Natalie, and in today's episode, I'll be talking about how my reading journey began and began again. So I would say for me, there have been 3 main eras in my reading journey, which I'm going to cover today. Starting with Era 1, a born reader. People have all kinds of first loves, and mine happened to come in the form of books. Some of my earliest memories have to do with reading. For example, I used to sit in my closet with my dad and a bunch of Dr. Seuss books, and that was how I started learning how to read and sound out words. Of course, my parents have stories from before I can even remember where there was a book I had when I was really little called Noisy Boat, and there'd be sounds on each page of the book, and my mom told me that I would bring that book to one of my parents, sit myself down in their lap, and make them read to me. And if they forgot to make the noises, I would take my hand and move their mouth so they would do it. I also had a phase of reading all the signs out loud while in the car or while out with my parents, like in the grocery store. Apparently, I once told the cashier that she had to give my mom her food for free because the sign said, "It's fresh or it's free." Not sure if that makes me a bit of an early reader or not, because I was 3 years old at that time. But needless to say, I was truly born a reader. And that love continued on into the rest of my childhood and teenage years. My parents also encouraged my reading habit by always buying me good books to read. I remember reading Roald Dahl, Black Beauty, The Hobbit, Harry Potter, which is still one of my favorites today, and lots of other classics as a kid. And then as I got older, I got into a lot of dystopian series like The Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, along with contemporary YA romance authors like Sarah Dessen, Jenny Han, specifically the Summer I Turned Pretty series, which I actually ended up rereading this year since the show came out. There's also John Green. I swear I read almost every single one of his books as a teen. Honestly, nothing was off limits growing up in terms of genre. The sky was always the limit. Moving forward to Era 2, back again in 2022. Fast forward many years later, but first, let me backtrack a bit to my university years. Some people are able to make time for doing things they love, like reading, in their post-secondary spare time. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of those people. I was barely managing to read all my textbook and required reading materials for classes that, by the time class and study time would be over, I'd have no brain cells left to try and read a book for fun. I think another part of my reading demise during this time was joining Instagram back in 2017. For a big part of uni, I was very hooked on logging into IG every single day and watching and liking every one of my friends' stories. And I'm not even kidding. I was one of those people who, first thing I did getting up in the morning was scroll on Instagram for an hour. Additionally, near the very end of high school, I got really hooked on TV shows and watching multiple shows at a time, which is still a bit of a problem today, FYI, as well as watching movies every weekend. And because it took less processing from my brain, I feel like I just reverted more and more to watching TV and movies instead. But anyways, fast forward to 2022, specifically October to November 2022. I was in a work term placement for a post-grad program and found I had a lot of free time when I wasn't working compared to being a full-time student. I'm not even sure how exactly I started reading again, but I remember watching a YouTuber or YouTubers, like Not Zoe, shout out to her, at the time who were getting into reading, and it inspired me to try reading again with all the free time I had. Also, I'm pretty sure I was getting into my lazy girl era and didn't really feel like exercising at the time, so hence, the reader girly era commenced instead. And I actually did read a lot within the span of the last 2 to 3 months of that year. I remember I read 25 books, which means I was reading about 8 books a month. And that was really the year I started using Goodreads to track my reading. Now, I did use Goodreads in previous years, but of course, I wasn't reading as much. And I think 2020 was the first year I actually ever tracked my reads on Goodreads. I guess if my reading journey were a romance trope, it would be lovers to strangers to lovers, which brings us to Era 3. Current day. Literally up to present day, which today is August 22nd, 2024, I can say that I'm still going fairly strong as a huge book lover, which maybe you could have guessed if you're listening to this podcast. I will say, my reading has taken a turn in terms of genres I currently like to read. These days, I have been reading a lot of romance, which is what got me back into reading in 2022, but I'm less into YA contemporary romance and more adult rom-coms or adult contemporary romance. As of very recently, I feel like I'm also really inspired reading books with female friendships, and I'm actually currently in the middle of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants book series, which, by the way, who didn't love the movies back in the 2000s? Also, in terms of format, I used to only read physical books in the past, but as of 2022, I have a Kindle e-reader and have tried Audible for audiobooks, although I'm not currently subscribed. I do have other subscriptions, though, that allow me to get ebooks and audiobooks, as well as borrowing them from the library. Don't ask why 2024 was the first year I got a library card for the city I live in. It was a long work in progress, but now I'm able to access free books way easier than before. I can't lie that I do get into reading slumps depending on what's going on in my life. In fact, I'm in a bit of a slump currently as I'm recording this. But my love for reading is strong enough at this point that I feel like I'll always go back to reading no matter what. Even if I took a break for months or years, I would go back again. I guess some first loves do stick around forever. Anyways, that pretty much wraps up my reading journey and how I got to where I am today. Hope you all enjoyed hearing about it, and if you're currently not reading but want to get back into it, maybe this will inspire you to take that step. And of course, tuning into this podcast regularly will also help you on your journey back as well. But for now, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you back here for episode 3. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you were able to take away something, and be sure to follow the podcast for more bookish content. Until next time, stay fully booked, and I'll talk to you soon.